What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, your one-stop destination for everything Dallas Cowboys. And today we have a treasure trove of insider insights straight out of Coach Brian Schottenheimer's recent press conference that has Cowboys Nation buzzing. Buckle up because we're diving deep into what could be one of the most telling off-seasons in recent Cowboys history. OTAs are more than just glorified walkthroughs, they're an early crystal ball into the DNA of this year's roster. And in these early looks, a few hidden gems are already emerging, 5 in particular, that seem to be carving out crucial roles under Schottenheimer's system. These players are getting early praise, and their impact could help shape the identity of the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. Some names you might expect, but there are surprises, 2 players flying under the radar who are suddenly showing out in a major way. Let's unpack the press conference, the player buzz, and what it all could mean heading into the new season. And before we get too deep into it, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications because we're bringing Cowboys fans non-stop analysis, reactions, and inside scoops all year long. Now let's get into it. One of the biggest standouts so far is none other than cornerback Kaiir Elam, a name that's been ringing out since the team acquired him via trade from the Buffalo Bills. Now, when the Cowboys made this move, the fanbase was divided, some optimistic, others skeptical, but according to Schottenheimer, Elam is not just fitting in, he's standing out. The coaching staff is loving what they're seeing. Schotty said that Elam has been one of the most impressive skill position players throughout OTAs, not just for his physical traits, but for the way he's playing with high-level intensity and effort. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. The Cowboys are tracking their players' top speeds during every practice, and Elam has consistently ranked among the fastest defenders on the field. That's a big deal, especially in today's NFL where explosive plays can make or break games. Schottenheimer praised how Elam moves post-snap, his commitment to the play, and his ability to carry out his role at top speed every single time. When we look at his time with the Bills, it's easy to see why things might not have worked out. Elam came into a system in Buffalo that emphasized more zone looks, which simply didn't match his strengths as a man-press corner. At Florida, Elam made a name for himself locking guys up at the line, using his physicality and instincts to smother receivers. So in Buffalo, he was asked to play off and read more than react, which limited his impact and created an image that he just wasn't ready. But now, with the Cowboys staff, and specifically with defensive coaches like Al Harris and secondary assistants like Andre Curtis giving him one-on-one attention, Elam is starting to look like the guy people expected when he was a first-round pick. And with Trayvon Diggs unlikely to return until late November, maybe even early December, the cornerback room needs a spark. That spark might just be Elam. Right now, the Cowboys will have to lean heavily on Elam and Darren Bland to hold down the perimeter. Bland showed out last year with his ball-hawking skills, and now Elam could complement him perfectly as a physical presence on the outside. It's one thing to hear a coach say a guy is fast or talented, but it's another when he's literally clocking the highest speeds on the team. It's that kind of intensity that wins you games late in the season. So for Cowboys fans looking for that breakout name in the secondary, bookmark Kaiir Elam. He's no longer just a depth guy or a hopeful addition, he's looking more and more like a Week 1 starter who's going to be instrumental in helping the Cowboys survive this early season stretch without Diggs. Now flipping over to another position group that's gaining a lot of positive noise, the linebackers. This is where things start to get very interesting because it's not just about who's playing well, it's also about who isn't being talked about. One name that surprisingly hasn't been mentioned much during OTA coverage is Marez Leupfel. This is surprising because when DeMarvion Overshown went down last season, Leupfel was one of the guys who stepped up and performed well, especially in the back half of the season. So to not hear his name pop up more often, either from beat reporters or directly from coaches, is something to keep an eye on. It doesn't necessarily mean he's struggling, but it does mean there are others outperforming him so far, and one of those names is Kenneth Murray Jr. Now Kenneth Murray Jr. is a name you should already be familiar with. He was a former first-round pick for the Chargers, and now that he's in Dallas, expectations are sky high. Schottenheimer went into detail about his impressions of Murray dating back to when they played against him while he was still with the Chargers. And get this, Schottenheimer remembered Murray so well that he specifically mentioned the game fell on his 50th birthday. He said they had to game plan around Murray because of his combination of speed, power, and elite tackling ability. He was that much of a problem on the field. So now, having him in a Cowboys uniform and seeing that same level of impact in OTAs is a major boost for the defense. Schotty says he hasn't disappointed. Quite the opposite, he's turning heads. The Cowboys need linebackers who can diagnose quickly, fly to the ball, and bring the hammer on every snap. And from all accounts, Murray is doing exactly that. But it's not just his raw talent, it's how he's adjusting to the Cowboys system under new defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. This is where coaching matters. Eberflus is known for getting the most out of linebackers, and the hope is that he can elevate Murray's play even more than we saw in Los Angeles. Don't be surprised if Murray ends up being the quarterback of the defense, calling the plays, and directing traffic by mid-season. But Murray isn't the only one turning heads. Jack Sanborn, another relatively under-the-radar addition, is also making a strong case for a starting role. Schottenheimer gave a ton of praise to Sanborn, specifically highlighting his work ethic and leadership qualities. What makes Sanborn stand out is that he's a guy who's familiar with Eberflus' system from their previous stops, so he has that leg up in understanding the concepts and being a voice in the locker room. Schotty said that Sanborn is not just a veteran trying to keep a job, he's someone who's also mentoring younger players, acting as a sounding board, and helping the whole linebacker room raise its standard. This is huge because when you think about culture-setting players, it's not always the flashy names. Sometimes it's the glue guys, the ones who grind every day, keep everyone accountable, and elevate the group around them. Sanborn looks like one of those guys. It's also becoming more and more evident that he could be this season's version of Zach Bond, a player who wasn't hyped, but earned a spot through grit, consistency, and execution. And don't be surprised if he ends up on the starting lineup sheet when the regular season kicks off. If he keeps this up, it'll be impossible to keep him off the field. Now let's talk about one of the more shocking developments from this OTA period, Demone Clark. Now I'll be real with you, I didn't think Clark was going to make it past final cuts. After last season, it seemed like he was on the outside looking in. But here we are, and not only is he still around, he's making enough noise that the coaching staff is being asked about him directly. According to Schottenheimer, Clark is making big strides this offseason. His ability to diagnose plays has improved, his comfort level within the defense has grown, and physically, he looks even more explosive. What really stood out was Schotty's comments about Clark's relationship with linebackers coach Dave Borgonzi. That bond is helping Clark stay focused, stay aligned with what the coaches want, and position himself as someone who could stick around as key depth. Clark's story is a classic tale of perseverance. He's a guy who clearly wants to be here and is doing all the little things to make sure he stays. And having someone with starting experience available off the bench is a huge asset. Injuries happen. Things go sideways during the season. Having someone like Clark who knows the system, has played meaningful snaps, and is still hungry, that's the type of depth championship teams are built on. Now shifting gears to the offensive side of the ball, there's one more name that's popped up recently who might surprise you, Miles Sanders. That's right, while all the early talk in training camp revolved around Javonte Williams, it's Sanders who's now generating the buzz. And according to Schottenheimer, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's followed his career. He called Sanders a home run threat and praised his ability to hurt defenses both as a runner and a receiver out of the backfield. The thing about Sanders is that he's experienced, he's been productive, and he knows how to find space. You line him up against a linebacker in coverage, and that's an instant mismatch. Schotty emphasized that Sanders has looked sharp in practices. He's picking up the system, he's running hard, and he's showing the type of big play potential that made him dangerous during his time with the Eagles. And here's something worth noting, no one's even bringing up Deuce Vaughn's name anymore. That doesn't mean Deuce won't have a role, but it does mean that Sanders is asserting himself in a way that demands attention. He's not just another back in the rotation, he might be the back, or at the very least, 1B to Javante's 1A. And all of this builds up to one undeniable truth: the Cowboys have some serious hidden gems on their roster right now. Whether it's Elam in the secondary, Murray and Sanborn flying around at linebacker, Clark fighting for his spot, or Sanders looking like a playmaker again, these guys are changing the narrative. They're proving that this team isn't just relying on stars, they're building real depth, real competition, and potentially a real contender. So as we move into the mandatory OTA period in the next week or two, all eyes will be on these guys to see if they can keep the momentum going. It's one thing to shine in May, but can they carry that energy into June, into training camp, and eventually into preseason action? Time will tell, but early signs are incredibly promising. And Cowboys Nation, I want to hear from you. Which of these 5 players do you think will have the biggest impact this season? Drop your predictions in the comments, let's get that conversation going, and as always, thanks for riding with us. This is Attack on Cowboys, and yes, we're still them boys.